When I grow up in the mid 70s, 1976, I was 13. And I've told this story before, but my life was listening to the radio. KGO was so big, and it was the beginning of what it was going to become a powerhouse. And it had lots of big people like Jim Dunbar and Owen Spann and some guy that emerged on the scene. And I know it firsthand because I listened that night back in October of 75. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary. And it was this guy named Ron Owens. Just another voice, I thought. Just somebody that was on this talk station in the Bay Area. And I was 13. And I loved listening to the radio. I loved, this was even before, obviously, internet and the news dynamic, which became so pronounced. It became such a part of our life. And I listened to Ron Owens. And I called him. And I remember later that year, Thanksgiving night, that he was on the air, and I called him again. And we soon formed a very strong bond. And pretty soon, Ron Owens was a staple in my life. Now, I've told this story before, but I may not have gone into personal stuff so much. But I want to tell this story because this is my place. And I think many of you will understand, and some of you will appreciate and remember, the good old days. But Ron Owens was such a vital part of my life that I took my mom in the summer of 76. So that same calendar year into 76 was KGO doing the Raiders. They were the first year that they would do the Raiders. And they had this family day up in Santa Rosa where the Raiders trained. And Ron Owens would host it. And I took my mom up to Santa Rosa, and I was rock rich. I even had a T-shirt that said rock rich, and got to meet Ron. And he was a mensch, a real nice guy. And he took my mother aside, gave her a big bear hug. And as that event unfolded, I formed, as I said, a bond with Ron Owens, who was essentially like my cousin Brucey. And therefore, I'm going to try to talk to you and tell you why I'm so upset without knowing the whole specifics about the plight of Ron, his wife Jan, and their daughter Laura. Why it's difficult for me, and yes, I'm biased a little bit, because I had a very public alienation with Ron. I was upset about the way in which he handled the demise of KGO. And I'm not going to go into the depth of that. You all know that. Most of you do. But we patched it up. I apologized, not for what I did, but how I did it. I apologized to Ron and not knowing what was taking place with him and his daughter, his younger daughter, Laura. So when I have said in the past that biased, I don't know what it is like to be a father. I don't know, frankly, how I would be able to handle what's happening now with Ron and his daughter. And, of course, Jan Black, his wife, and the mother of Laura Owens. And I would ask some of you people to take a step back and put aside all your beliefs and your feelings, what have you. This is not a defense of Ron or Jan. this is me trying to look at somebody else's plight and what they're dealing with now. And again, God knows this thing has been handled and refurbished and put forth back and forth. I know a lot of you have strong opinion, and I'm not necessarily berating you for what or how you feel with regards to this rather profoundly sad and tragic case of what's happening with Laura Owens and her dad, Ron, and all that. I just can't imagine what's happening because I, frankly, don't know Ron from what is currently on his plate. And it's a lot to have on your plate. Again, not taking any sides, but growing up in that time period when KGO was so special and the people who worked there, and they referred to it as a family because they had so many great people, and the radio station itself was so terrific. It was not just a mere radio station, as I've often said. It was a family within those people that worked there, but it became a family of Bay Area people. I know a lot of people who remember listening to KGO, and in times of great need and joyous and sadness, whether it was an earthquake, whether there was some profound, horrific, good, bad, indifferent story taking place, like the Moscone milk murders, like the zebras, like what happened, oh my God, what happened in Jonestown. We were all there, right? Some of us lived through that. And KGO was like that vehicle for us to which we can vent and commiserate. And Ron was one of those people. Now, look, I know Ron's got baggage. We all have baggage. And I'm not even talking about the issue with his daughter. I recognize the things, the issues, that subject matter. And it is sad and it is rather tragic in a way. And look, I am trying to explain to you my unique relationship at the time with Ron Owens, who was there for me, a father figure, if you will, who was there and who basically took a part of my life that was kind of tough growing up without a father and knowing full well my love and allegiance to an institution like KGO. And I know some of you saying, well, how big of a deal was it? You're talking about a radio station. It's not your life. Well, folks, it became a part of my life. And I got to know Ron very, very well. And look, he had flaws, has flaws. He's still very much alive. But he was really a nice person. And you might say, well, everybody could be nice. No, he was beyond nice. We went to baseball games. He took me to the Giants games. He took me out and about. He invited me over to the Rock Trivia, which a feature that he did on the radio on Friday nights, to hang out with him at his place there on Union and Webster Street, and to become a part of the family, his family and friends at the Marina Green. That was my summer of 77. And got to know Ron fairly well. I mean, we weren't, bosom buddies, but enough to where I could say he was a true friend. So, you know, and I think back in time how special that period was in my life. So, if you could try to just put a temporary, how can I put it, pause on your vitriol for whatever. And believe me, if what is out there is proven to be accurate, there'll be a time to vent. There'll be a time to be accusatory and to lament about what is happening. I can't imagine that Ron can be dealing with this in a positive light. Obviously, that would be ridiculous, but he's dealing with his own issues in life. And at many parts of me was very, very angered at Ron over the years, especially these last 10, 15 years when KGO, the first KGO, the real KGO, was obliterated by a corporate company. And I was angered at that and I took offense to it. But back to the present, I only know Ron. I don't know him through the Laura Owens situation. I frankly have not paid attention to it. I had to read about it, and I understand, as I said the other day, the rather serious charges put forth in these new indictments coming down. But just try to put that aside, if you will, some of you, and understand that I am not trying to appease or say this is right or this is someone who's wrong and they're right. And I just ask you to put yourself in the place of you being a father or a mother, and that your child or daughter or son is in a situation like this. And perhaps you might find it to be a difficult circumstance, that maybe there's outside factors. I don't know anything. I'm just saying Ron doesn't need me to defend him or Laura Owens or Jan Black, Ron's wife. I'm just giving you a different light and to put back all your anger and resentment. And I understand the people involved, the people directly involved, as scurrilous and as tabloidish as it is, I understand their resentment because they can only deal with circumstances that have nothing to do with Ron or Jan or outside factors. They're only dealing with Laura Owens. And I get all that. I'm just putting into light the fact that, look, folks, at the end of the day, he's still a father. His wife is still a mother. And to put aside your rancor and your anger and all of that and think in terms of just basic human being and understanding. I am in that situation. I'm trying my best. And once again, I understand a lot of you have resentment towards myself when I didn't say anything, not because I didn't want to say anything, because two things. One, I was upset about the circumstances involving somebody who I thought was a real and still do basic friend in my life. And secondly, I didn't know all of the factors, didn't know the story that much. I've read now and I've read in the past. And obviously, as I said the other day, also, there are things that have to be explained or at least brought forth and put in a new light. That's all I meant to say. Wasn't hiding back anything, wasn't saying anything different. And if there was a wrong or wrongs here, then ultimately, yeah, somebody's got to pay the price. Now, I don't know how that's going to evolve into, but that's a neither here nor there kind of a thing. I'm not involved in that yet. Um, but Ron was a vital part of my life growing up, and that will always be the case. And I know he's going through a lot of stuff right now and has in the past. And I'm just saying, in that context, have some feelings. And look, there will be issues involved in this that will be explained, I'm quite sure, later on. So I just wanted to get that out on the record, and I hope you understand my situation and my feelings now better than you did before.